Welcome to Clinical Trial Blazers, a podcast by Biotech, where we dive deep into the journeys of industry leaders who are shaping clinical research and biotech innovation. I am your host, Alberto Grignolo. Today on Clinical Trial Blazers, I'm delighted to welcome Dr. Geeta Vemuri, a force in biotech investing and a champion for translating science into real-world impact. Geeta's career sits at the unique intersection of life sciences and venture capital, and her insight is a rare blend of scientific rigor, strategic vision, and entrepreneurial drive. Geeta is the founder and managing partner of Agent Capital, a healthcare-focused venture firm that invests across the full spectrum, from preclinical to commercial, in novel therapeutics that address unmet patient needs. Throughout her 2-decade career, Geeta has led and scaled investment programs, overseen portfolio operations, and steered multiple exits. She serves or has served on boards of biotech and pharmaceutical companies including Covagen, Syntimmune, Pyxis Oncology, Metagenomics, and True North Therapeutics. Geeta, it's my pleasure to see you again and to welcome you today.
Thank you, Alberto.
Would you take me back to when you first realized that venture capital and biotech investing would be your path?
I actually think it was more of a carefully planned path, but also I fell into some parts of it. So both, I would say. First of all, I was fascinated when I came to America several decades ago now by the companies that were getting created. At the time,
you came from India, right?
Yes, I did.
Right.
And so at the time, it was Biogen, Amgen, Metamune were the names of companies that were still clinical stage companies. They didn't have commercial product. Amgen might have had. And so I was fascinated by how these companies get started, who finances them, and then how do they become these big giants like Monsanto, which is the other company that I kind of had seen. So that actually was particularly fascinating for me.
At what age did you have that question pop into your head? Was it a very young age, relatively speaking?
Mid-20s to
That's pretty
mid-20s.
early.
That wasn't young. I had finished my PhD, I would say. And I was looking for what career path I should take that PhD training, whether go into a scientific career, go into a company. And that's when I came across these wonderful companies in US. And so that's how it actually happened. So I thought the best way for me to actually do this is to learn how to finance these companies. And the shortest cut in those days, because venture capital, if you recall, is actually very different today. Everybody knows about it. But I'm talking about when I was starting out, not too many people actually knew that as a career path at all. So,
let's put a decade on that. What decade might that have been? I'm not trying to age you. I'm trying to just asking.
This was in, I would say, early 2000.
Okay.
It wasn't institutionalized like it is right now. People seek out careers in venture, but not at that time. And so I actually went back to school, got my MBA at Wharton Business School, which actually provided me a very broad exposure to multiple things. And I went to Wall Street from there to be equity research analyst, actually, initially. And that was a fantastic training for me. It was I spent a very short period of time. And then
how short?
It was probably 1.5 years, I would say, because I always wanted to come back into creation of a company versus looking at it top down. And this is where I got lucky that I was able to get back into venture capital. Okay. I initially went into a place where it was private capital of wealthy individuals investing in companies, which is the typical route always in US. And it's only later on venture capital became this institutional kind of bucket for biotech, actually. And then immediately I was able to go to another place called Quaker Partners when they were forming the firm. And that was an incredible experience for me in terms of being able to see how do you actually start a venture capital firm. And not only that, what are the different sources of capital to actually get to form a firm, right? And finally, how do you make decisions for investing?
To rewind a little bit in your life, you trained as a scientist, I believe, at one of India's most the distinguished scientific institutes of learning and research. And then you became a leader in biotech investing. So I want to ask you, how did your very strong scientific background help you evaluate opportunities for investment? How did you approach the transition from science to finance?
What I would say is biopharma is very unique. It's uniquely different venture capital space than, let's say, even tech or other type of venture capital investments, industrial investments, what have you. In biopharma, you require science as the bedrock. You definitely have to have very strong scientific background or multiple years of pharma experience. You got to have one or the other, before you can actually make those decisions on behalf of a fund or a firm. And so I thought my scientific background was very natural in helping me understand some of the basic nuances of biology and chemistry, for example. But that's not enough, right? Okay, you got to keep up with science. It's changed from the time when I got PhD, when we actually probably didn't have PCR. I'm dating myself, yes. Okay, but everything grew so quickly, right? Okay, to where we are today. So things have changed rapidly in the field. If you have to continuously keep up. So I do read a lot, scientific magazines, papers, and then keep myself current. And hopefully ChatGPT will make me smarter now. I'm
Right.
joking.
That's okay. We're all learning. We're on a learning journey, all of us, all the time, particularly in this field. The other side of that coin, if I may, might be that someone who is in private equity, in investments, and does not have the kind of scientific background you have, might perhaps be at a disadvantage when deciding investments to be made in biotech, and might actually make investments that are not as well informed or as wise or as prudent as ones that you might make because you are a scientist.
I think you can do if you surround yourself with the right talent and then somehow have acquired the experience and intuitions to then execute off of that knowledge that someone else is kind of helping you with, right? Okay. So I think it can be done. I'm not saying you have to be a scientist to be a venture capitalist in biopharma. I'm just saying it's easier for you, to be that. But if you don't, then you just definitely have to surround yourself. And I've seen very successful venture capitalists in biopharma, but I feel like they either have spent inordinate amount of time learning about the topics themselves or surround themselves with the right people.
Right.
Yeah.
You said a couple of times it's important to surround yourself with talent. So I want to ask you, have you had mentors, role models that you have surrounded yourself with or have helped you along? And how have those individuals helped you specifically? And do they continue to guide you in some way, directly or indirectly, from memory, as you lead Agent Capital today?
What a great question. I have to say, it is impossible for me to pick just one individual or one person that actually has helped me or guided me. In fact, I learn from people who report into me, for example. I learn from people that I reported into, and then, of course, my peers. So it's all across 360 is what I would call it. But particularly, I have learned many things from the Quaker Partners partnership itself, how to make decisions and how to really evaluate companies, which was an incredible experience for me, I would say. And then even today, we have my former Baxter Baxalta executives either directly associated with us as advisors or venture partners in our team. And so they are in our Monday meeting, and they constantly help us, including other venture partners in our team.
Can you think of a particularly impactful learning or insight from a role model that stands out to you in your past experience as having really maybe changed your mindset about investing or biotech? Something that was made the light bulb go off in your head.
Yeah, I mean, there are several moments of light bulb, right, going on and off. But I would say the particularly interesting moment is when, as a young entrant, as venture capitalist, I always focused on science. Whereas the partnership at Quaker, one of my partners particularly, was always focused on management team. Okay. And this is where my learning was that science is important. I'm not saying it's not, but unless you have the people, the management team, science will fail. Okay. And you will not know what the reason is. Is the science not working, or it's actually the whatever opportunity didn't work? So at the end of the day, it's people.
Yeah. And you mean the management team in the company in which you are investing? Is that what you mean?
Exactly. The invested company and also the boards of the company, right? It's really, I mean, if someone sees it as a partnership in the biotech company, then you're really successful. If the CEO and the board see each other as the other person, then I've seen you tend to fail.
That leads me naturally into my next question, and that is, in your experience, what distinguishes biotech companies that are able to attract significant and lasting investment? What makes them special and worthy of your attention as an investor?
Yeah, I think first of all, they have to have a vision and a concept which actually is ready for that product, or time that's ready for that product, right? Okay, those are, I would say, table stake. You got to have a vision of what that product should be, because many a times when we are investing in these companies, there is no commercial product. It takes forever for these companies to make that product. So you have to project out the end game, including the clinical trials that are needed for it, and then bring it back to today at the science level. Some CEOs naturally have that ability to see that, and those tend to really also sometimes articulate it better than others. Not always they can do it, but even if they cannot, I see them raising capital very successfully because people get what that vision is.
You mentioned CEOs, and I want to ask you, are there common traits that you've seen in successful CEOs or clinical programs that resonate the most with investors like yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, it's the vision. I can use a cliche, which is true, okay, which is successful entrepreneurs generally have higher batting average of being successful again. So I can just keep backing them. But there are times you have to back first time entrepreneur, let's say, right? Okay. So in those cases, I feel like they have a vision and they actually really meticulously design the trials well, either with the help of someone else, a CRO such as Paraxel, or themselves, or surround themselves with talent that can actually really do a trial which is effective, and you don't have to repeat it. I mean, so many of the products in our industry have failed not because the product didn't work. Somebody else actually picked up and made it successful. Money was wasted because the trial was not designed properly. So those CEOs that actually have gotten to that place and done some successful trial, I feel like people gravitate towards and fund them. And there are multiple examples, and I am incredibly fortunate to be working with few such people.
It almost sounds like there is a recipe for success, and yet not every CEO or every company is successful. So what accounts for that difference?
Right.
Why doesn't everybody who follows the recipe basically succeed?
The timing and time in the market also sometimes, works against, people that actually, let's say, had assumed something and then went to a place and then the market suddenly changed for them, right? Okay. Even if they have done everything right, it's just the fact of the space. Mm-hmm. In the gene therapy space, as you know, right? Okay. There are many innovations happening. People are doing exceedingly well, but the ultimate product becomes kind of expensive in terms of treatment, right? Okay. And so those companies are having very hard time raising capital, even if they were successful before. Okay. Even if they had this $4 billion exit before and they started a new company and the company raised a bunch of capital, I think they all are still having some challenge raising capital. So it's nothing to do with them.
That suggests to me that luck or lack of luck or bad luck can play a role in the destiny of a CEO and their company. Do you agree with that? Or do we leave luck off the table? It doesn't count. Sorry, this is all rational. It's all numbers. Luck is irrelevant. How do you feel about luck or poor luck?
I think luck always plays a role, always, in everything, I would say. It just, of course, you have to be prepared, right? That famous statement, right? Okay, luck favors prepared mind, right? Okay, so you got to have that. But I will never say luck doesn't play a part. You just, multiple times we've seen, even in our case, sometimes we feel a product is going to be so hard to make. And then suddenly in 2 months, we see a product which is working exactly how we want it. And I would just say that's luck.
Do, have you found some CEOs that are generally lucky and other CEOs that are generally unlucky?
I wish I knew that. Then I would follow only those that are lucky. Not kidding. Okay. Yeah. Time and again. Yeah.
But have you found some that seem to just strike gold most times?
I have seen those. I've seen those that I'm not sure if I can call that they were lucky or they are genius, right? Okay, because it's very hard for me to separate those two for another person. But yeah, I've seen, there are multiple examples in biotech industry of fortunate people. I don't know if I want to call them out, but absolutely. And I have the pleasure of working with them repeatedly.
Let's turn to boards. You are serving and have served on a number of boards of directors for biotech and pharma companies. So, what do you see as a value of being a board member? And should emerging leaders in biotech actually consider joining boards of directors?
Yeah, I think, once again, you asked the question really very well, which is what is it you add as value to the board, right? Okay. Why should emerging leaders want to bring in somebody who just is fresh out of school, let's say, and has a ton of cash to bring them on the board just because they brought the cash, right? Okay.
Right.
Of course, they bring them in because someone's given them the responsibility to manage the capital, and therefore that allows them to, let's say, buy the seat, right? Okay. But in general, I've seen people that have experience, either in business development connections or kind of any type of venture capital relationships, clinical trial side of it, okay, or scientific side of it. You got to have something to give back to the CEO,
right,
and the company. So that's what they seek. And then I've seen, many times CEOs appreciate you being direct, the strong ones, okay? The ones that are not strong, in my opinion, they will point out this board member, everything I'm doing wrong is because of my board. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Of course they do, But I think the stronger ones are able to, that is their job, to build consensus, right? Okay, with these strong-minded people who are managing money for someone else. Okay.
Are you saying to people, to our listeners, don't blame the board of directors? Is that basically the message?
I'm saying that, if you are, first of all, if you're saying the board is not letting me do this, then quit. Okay, just tell the board I'm out, right? Okay, this is the way I'm going to do. But if you want to hang in there and keep complaining the board is not letting you do this or that, then it's not helpful to you also.
You've spoken about the value that people like you add to boards of directors. What value do you derive from being a board member? Is the other part of the question I was asking.
Yeah. Oh my God. There is so much learning that I have. Actually, as a venture capitalist, few things. One is my fellow board members, right? Okay. They are connected with 10 different people. So it's a network expansion immediately for me. And then, there are times when I've gone to my fellow board members on unrelated topic. Of course, I won't name the CEOs or, talk about them. But if I have a challenge, they're very helpful in actually helping me navigate through. Okay. Right. So it's a very helpful thing. And then, as I said, if I have a company where I need some connections for them, it's the easiest phone call. Like they know me because we've been together for 6, 7, 8 years on the boards. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
I don't have to tell you that biotech can be a high risk, high reward field, but also, high failure field as well. So let me ask you just straight out, what has been your highest high and your lowest low in this space?
Yeah, I think lowest low is what I always think about a lot more. Highest high, honestly, they always happen. That's my job. It's the things that you lose, you kind of think about why have you lost and what happened there, right? Okay, so that's what I focus on. And my lowest low is honestly when I know the technology is doing super well, okay, and there's just mismanagement from all around, whether it's the board, it's the management, everybody together, the capital gets wasted, right? Okay, and then you get to a point where you can't raise money because it's just a vicious cycle, you know. And so I've seen that. I've actually seen other companies benefit from picking up that technology for pennies on the dollar and then becoming super successful. That's the lowest low because I wasn't in that success anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
When that happens, what is your level of patience? How quickly do you take action? How patient do you remain in the
Yeah.
face of things not going well?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the challenge of some of the biotech thing because capital requirements are pretty big, right? Okay. And so you end up with, kind of different stakeholders at different times. And so you cannot really control always like you could in a private equity shop. Okay. Because you have numerous stakeholders. So when that happens, all we can do is to really have the discussions with the board members and the CEO. And I'm known to be super impatient, so
Mm.
I've done that, okay, multiple times, not because I've seen the train is going in the wrong direction and will hit the wall, okay. Um, and so that has happened, but have we corrected course? Sometimes, absolutely. Okay. Have we lost? And as I said, that's my low then. Having recognized that, having tried hard, not able to convince people to change the course is where I then feel the low.
What led you to found or co-found Agent Capital? And have there been any successes with Agent of which you're really, really very proud since you started the company a decade ago or so?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I always wanted to start something of my own, a company or something. My ambition was to build something after coming to US because I saw how easy it is. I don't know it's easy or not, but I thought at least how easy it is to kind of build something. And so that's what I wanted to do. And so I was acquiring all the experience to get to a point where I could feel comfortable that I can start something. I was not thinking of actually starting a venture capital firm from the beginning. Just so you know, Alberto, this is where this journey of forming a venture capital firm is serendipitous in some ways, but the concept of being an entrepreneur and starting something was not.
If I may ask you, as a woman coming from India, a trained scientist coming to the US, entering the world of US finance in a big way and venture capital investments and so on, were there any moments that were especially challenging?
I didn't have time to think about what was challenging. Okay. I think every step of the way is new and challenging times, in the sense that once you start a firm, you bring in capital, you have to get more capital. You have to get capital from different type of investors, convincing them and getting another type. My high is that when I actually am able to bring in different types of investors into venture capital, into our firm, and then having a successful exit for them in our companies. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. And you asked me success. We had multiple companies that went public very good ways in our fund one, and two of them got acquired. And then, in fact, even in this market, in our fund two, we had one company successfully go public and one got acquired. And in fact, there's one in process.
Congratulations. That's terrific.
Thank you.
Geeta, what advice would you give to emerging investment and or biotech leaders? Again, leaders in investments and leaders in biotech. What advice would you give to these people that I would say are probably younger and perhaps starting out? And what guidance would you give them to help them be successful?
Yeah, I think I'll have different guidance for young people and different one for those that are a little bit up there in their career, right? Okay. I think for younger people, certainly I would say biopharma and any career is a team effort. They all forget, they think if they are smart, everybody will recognize. I have a kid, I know he's great. 28-year-old boy. Okay, they all think if you're smart, people will recognize. That doesn't happen. Okay, you have to promote yourself, right? Okay, rightfully, not with arrogance. So that's something I want to tell them, right? Okay, and to the older people, especially the CEOs, I mean, just capital efficiency. Build your company capital efficiently. More of it you can keep, and if you have an exit, you actually make ton more money.
Define capital efficiency for those of us who may not be intimately familiar with the concept. It sounds logical, but let me understand exactly what you mean, please.
So, the same thing that one can do with $100 million, right? Okay, if you plan well and can do it with 30 million, okay, and if you get acquired for 200 million, you're in good shape. This 100 million company has to be acquired for really a lot more, which is not easy. And you just keep going, raising more and more capital at that higher price. And the outcomes very rarely become very good. Yeah.
In closing, where do you see the biotech sector headed over the next 2 to 3 years? We've had some tough times. We're now in the fourth quarter of 2025. What are we looking at? What's on the horizon that excites you, if anything?
I think it's a great time to be in biopharma. I really believe it. I mean, we all know how many patents are going to expire, right? Okay, the amount of 300 billion or so of value will be lost through patent expirations. And so pharma companies are very active in acquiring companies, and they will continue. You saw multiple acquisitions, right? Okay, so that's going to happen. So this is where investors coming in now will benefit from, let's say, 26, 27 year. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 2026 and 2027 is what you mean?
Yeah. I think, I mean, 25, you still have existing companies getting acquired for sure. And so I think 26, especially if your IPO markets become a little bit more open for us, then, you'll have that benefit too. Yeah.
So you're looking at the current situation as being positive more than unfavorable or challenging?
No, this year, 24, 25, beginning of 25 was super challenging. Okay.
Yeah.
Luckily for us, we Fund 1 companies, some of them had already gone public during that era of, really everyone can go public, even preclinical companies. So they were able to get out. But 23 investments, 24 investments for the next round of financing was not easy for them. But all I'm saying is, I think with the new acquisitions happening in the portfolio, right? Okay, that window in 26 will open up for many of these companies.
Very encouraging words, and we're going to close on those encouraging words. Geeta, really very inspiring conversation. I like your positivity, your optimism, and many of our listeners probably will be encouraged by your positive outlook for the next 24, 36 months. Who knows? So I really appreciate that. And I was struck by your mention that luck plays an important part in the work that you do, and I might have expected something different. So thank you for underscoring that one can be lucky, and we make our own luck. So thank you so much, Geeta. And so, folks, that's it for this episode of Clinical Trial Blazers. Big thank you to Dr. Geeta Vemuri for joining us today and sharing her perspective. Thank you so much, Geeta. Folks, stay tuned for more episodes of Clinical Trial Blazers, where we will continue to explore human stories behind the ideas and innovations shaping pharma and biotech. And if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to check out our other conversations with leaders across the industry. Please do take a moment to rate and review this podcast wherever you listen. Clinical Trial Blazers is created by Parexel Biotech and hosted by me, Alberto Grignolo. Special thanks to our production partner, Wonder Media Network, and thank you all for tuning in. Until next time, stay curious and let's keep pushing the boundaries of clinical research.